Hello friends, this is the fifth lecture for programming in Python. We will be considering the topic data types in Python. My name is Jitesh Kumar Bhatia and I'm working as assistant professor in GLA University, Mathura. So let's start what actually a data type is. Data type actually defines the type of data. So every time we are having some data, we have a type associated with the data. The data can be an integer value, the data can be a float value, the data can be a boolean value, the data can be some value in the form of string. So anything and everything is always associated with a data type. So in Python, we are having the data types as string, integer, we have float, we have boolean, and every data we are having falls under exactly one of the category, right? And for example, when we are having a string, whatever we have written inside double quotes, that particular literal is in the form of string. Some value which is actually an integer value that does not contain a point is actually an integer value. It means 10 is an integer value, 786 is an integer value, 259 is an integer value, because all these are perfect integers. Then we have float. Float is actually having some decimal, and it is more precise as compared to integer. Like 3.00 is more precise as compared to when we are saying that it is 3. And then we have boolean value. Boolean actually takes only two values, which is either true or false. True means that the condition that you are actually looking at is true, and false means that the condition that you are looking at is false, right? So the data can be in either of these type, and if the data does not belong to any of the type, it is basically none data type, none, none, right? So when we do not have any variable, and then we ask the Python interpreter that what is the data type of this variable, then it will be telling that it is none, because if there is no data type, then it is none, right? So when we are talking about data types again, then a variable, as in the previous lecture as well, we talked about that it is a memory location that stores a value. The value can be string, integer, float, or boolean, right? And each value has a data type. So if it is having a string value, then the data type will be string. If the variable is containing integer value, then the data type would be integer, and so on. The variable takes the data type of the assigned value. That's why the Python language is actually known as type inferred language. We talked about this thing in the previous lecture as well. So what actually a string is? When we are asked about what is a string is a sequence of characters. So in Python, string is a sequence of Unicode character. Unicode character is different from ASCII character because ASCII character were only containing alphabets, English alphabets, digits, and special symbols. In Unicode, we have the characters from all or many of the languages like Chinese, like Japanese, and so on. So we have 65,536 characters in Unicode, whereas we were having only 256 characters in ASCII. So Unicode is a very large data set, and it contains all the characters that you can think of. Strings can be created by enclosing characters into a single quotes or double quotes or triple quotes. So by using single quotes or by using double quotes or by using triple quotes, you can actually create the string. For example, if I'm writing S equal to within double quotes GLA University, so GLA University is a string and it is getting assigned to a variable S. And if I go for print S, then GLA University will get printed because S contains that value, right? Then we come across integer. So any numerical value that is purely an integer falls under the integer data type. It can be zero, it can be a negative value, it can be a positive value, but it should be a pure integer value. For example, if I'm writing a equal to 10, so 10 is an integer value getting assigned to variable a, so the data type of a is integer only. 20 is an integer value getting assigned to b, so the data type of b will be integer, right? And if I'm writing a equal to a, so whatever is outside double quote, that will be printing the variable's value, and whatever is inside the double quote, that will be printed as it is, right? So the output would be a equal to 10, b equal to 20 in this scenario, in this case. When we talk about integer, we can have operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division on integer data. right? A string, if we want to convert it into integer, we can do it by the help of int method, like we saw in the examples previously as well. For example, when we are writing a equal to 25 within double quotes, so 25 is actually a string value and it contains all the digits as the characters, right? And if I'm writing n equal to int a, it means the value a, whatever is in the data type string, is going to be converted into integer, and then that integer value is getting assigned to variable n. So n is actually an integer variable, and we can apply the operators that work on mathematical operations, right? So let us say I've written sq equal to n into n. So n into n will be calculated for on integer value 25, and we will be getting the answer as 625, right? So when we talk about float, float is actually some value which is more precise as compared to integer. So it contains a decimal, a point after the integer part, and we have some decimal places up to that, like 78.6, 34.7, 12.0. These are all float values, and we can have all those operations in this like addition, or subtraction, multiplication, and division. Modulus and exponentiation are also allowed here, right? A string value can be converted into a float by using the inbuilt function float, so you can go for that as well. Like for example, I'm writing x equal to 12.6. So here in this case, because 12.6 is a float literal, and I'm assigning that particular value to variable x, so the data type of x is going to be float. And y equal to x upon 4 is also going to give me a float value, because when I'm using a single slash, it is giving me the value up to until the remainder becomes 0, so it comes out to be float. Then if I'm printing the value of y, so it would be printing 3.1515. So you can see that I've not specified the data type of x and y, but x and y both are having the float values, right? So just keep in mind these things, that the result of addition of two float values is always going to be float. The result of subtraction between two float values is also going to be float. The result of multiplication of two float values is also going to be float. However, the division is always float. Whether they are float values or they are integer values or one of them is float, it does not matter. Division is going to be float only all the time. So let's talk about the question. What is the data type of 100? Yes, you are right. It's string, because we have written it inside double quotes. What is the data type of 202? Because it is not written in double quotes, so it is an integer value. What is the data type of x in x equal to 786? Because 786 has a data type integer, and we are assigning the value of 786 to x. So it means we are going to have the data type of x as integer only. What is the data type of y in y equal to int 100? So 100 was initially string, but it was converted into integer by using the int function. And then we are assigning to y. So y is actually an integer variable. What is the data type of z equal to, z in z equal to Mathura? So z equal to Mathura means Mathura is a string value. So the data type of z also becomes string. What if we take the data type inappropriately? It will always be removing the preciseness, or it will be giving more memory. So always try to get the data type appropriately. When we talk about boolean, boolean only contains two of the values, true or false. So all the relational operator actually gives us the true or false value, like we saw in the previous slide as well. 3 greater than 7 would be giving us false, 6 less than 12 will be giving me true, 5 less than 5 is false, 26 greater than equal to 26 will be true, and so on. And we have or operation, and not operation. They also gives us the answer in true or false only. Python is actually a loosely typed language. Means if I'm uh, changing the data type of the value that I'm assigning to a variable, the data type of the variable also gets changed. Like for in this case, I'm writing x equal to 10. So initially the x is integer variable, but as soon as I wrote x equal to India in the same program, the data type of x became string. And as soon as I wrote x equal to 17.6, x was changed to having data type float. So it is actually a loosely typed language. Whatever data type you are giving, it takes the data type of that only. What is inappropriate in this program? This program has some inappropriateness, and what is that? it is always going to give us the same result, which is 30, right? Because A is 10 and B is 20. So it is better that we take the input from the user. And as we know that from in the previous slide as well, we saw that by taking the input function, we can take the input from the user. So this program is much better as compared to the previous program, because this program has actually taken input from the user, and it will be giving us always the different output based on what values user has given as input. So it is a better part. So this is the explanation of the same thing, that the first line is taking the input from the user and storing it in a after converting it into integer. The second line is again taking the input from the user and after converting that value to the integer value, it is storing it in variable p, and then addition of a and b is stored in c, and finally the value of c is printed on the screen, right? Similarly, what all things we know, that input is an inbuilt function that takes the string input from the user, and if we want to convert it into integer or float or some other thing, we have the inbuilt functions related to that, and the program then continues with our requirements, right? What will happen if the following lines are getting executed? So a equal to input, enter your name. So it will be giving you a message, enter your name, and it will be taking some input from the user, and whatever input you have provided, that will be stored in the variable a. Similarly, if I'm writing b equal to int input, enter your age, so it will be taking it will be first giving you a message, enter your age, and whatever input you are giving, that input will be converted into integer if it can be converted. A string can be converted into integer if all the characters in the string are digits, right? So whatever age you have entered, that will be stored in the variable b in the form of integer. Then height is actually a float value, so it must be converted to float in the same manner. And if you do not know the data type of the value that user is going to enter, then you have to use the inbuilt function eval. What eval does, eval identifies, eval evaluates what data type value you have actually entered, and if it can be converted into any new data type, it will be converted, and so on. So like enter either your name or age. So if you are entering your name, then in that case it will be taken as string only, but if you are entering your age, then that will be converted into integer, and then the value will be stored in d, right? So eval is a much better approach as compared to int, float, and bool. So let us summarize what we have learned. Each value has a data type, and each variable has a data type, and Python is a loosely typed language. Input method is taking input from the user in the form of string, and when we want to convert into appropriate data type, we have inbuilt methods. So this is all related to data type. This is all related to this lecture. Thank you. Thanks